Hello everyone. So we are here to discuss today in detail something about political science and international relations as an optional. So I will divide this session in two parts. In the first session we are going to discuss about what all is there in the subject, what all is going to be studied, and in the second part of the session we will be discussing about the strategy related to the subject and also something in general about political science and international relations, how this subject can help you in the overall scheme of the examination, right? So it is a very important, like for example, I'm assuming that most of you have not studied the subject before. So let us try to understand what political science and international relations is all about. You must be having some elementary idea about what will be the content, but still we need to be more clear about, especially with respect to the theoretical aspects which are there in the syllabus of Pol Science and IR. Okay, so PSIR, Political Science and International Relations, it has now become one of the most popular optionals for civil services examination, and in this subject there is a little difference with respect to, in comparison to other optional subjects, and that is the way the syllabus has been arranged, right? Like for example, we have paper 1 of PSIR and paper 2 of PSIR. In both these papers, in general, in the social sciences optional, you will have first paper mostly theoretical, and the second paper, this includes mostly areas related to application parts, right? So this is theory and this is practice in most of the social science optionals. But in case of PSIR, there is slight difference, and that is in paper 1 we have section A. Section A is related to, this is all theoretical, okay? This is all theoretical. What it is about, what all theory will be included in section A, this is, I'm going to discuss a brief framework with you on this, so as to make it very clear to you, like what all is covered here. Then in section B, it is all applied, right? Section B is the application of politics and political theories with respect to India, right? How politics is conducted in India. So this also we can discuss in brief. And paper 2 is all about international relations. So in paper 2 also, section A, this will be again theoretical, okay? Mostly this is theoretical, but there are some issues also involved, which are like at the international level, what all issues are going on and how these theories are brought into practice. A little element of that is also there in section A. And section B is all about foreign policy, which is mostly application, right? But it also includes certain principles. Like, so these principles will again be somewhat theoretical. So the arrangement is slightly different in political science and international relations. In both the paper 1 and paper 2, you will have theories, and in both the papers you will have practice also. Paper 1 is related to theories, and then section B is Indian political system, and paper 2, section A is related to the world politics, international politics, section B is related to foreign policy of India or conduct of India's external affairs. This is how broadly the syllabus is arranged, right? Now in today's discussion, I will just briefly discuss only some framework of this section A, even more briefly something about section B, and then briefly I will tell you about this paper 2 also. The most important area of PSIR out of all this is section A of paper 1. If you are clear about this, if you are clear about all the concepts here, all the theories, all the principles over here in paper 1, section A, you are clear about everything in political science and IR, right? So this, though it looks like it is 25% of the syllabus, but I consider it in terms of its importance, it may be around 40 to 50% of overall understanding of PSIR. So our focus is going to be, we will have more sessions also on these areas, because once this is clear, the entire background is clear or conceptual framework has been developed and you have a strong foundation, then it becomes far more easier for us to deal with all other areas of PSIR. So let us first start with this framework. What all we are going to study in section A of paper 1, right? It is all theoretical. So what all these theories all about? So before we understand these theories, we should understand what all is there in political science and international relations. Politics is about political organization of the society. In politics, we study, or in political science, we study about the authority. Which authority? Political authority. This political authority is represented by what you call as state, right? So there is an authority, this is a collective authority of the state. You may have heard this term before also in your Indian polity session. I am not getting into any explanation of this. I am just giving you a very broad idea as to what is there. Then relationship of the state with individual, right? So first focus is that we need to understand what is state, what is a good state, in what form the state can be formed, what are different forms of state, right? All the thinkers from the beginning, from Plato, Aristotle and Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, Machiavelli, most of these thinkers, they have given some theories on state, right? What is the ideal form of state, what is the best state, in what structure it can exist, then what will be the form of government in those states, and all those things. And more than this, their theories, it also explains the relationship which the state will be having with the individuals who are there as citizens in the state, or maybe as individual themselves, because citizen is having some specific meaning that can be considered separately. So this relationship between state and individual, it is explained through various other different concepts. What all these concepts are? See, first of all, when we are defining the relationship, we are defining this relationship in terms of authority, right? Authority or power, okay? So the relationship of the state over individual is expressed in terms of power or authority which the state is exercising. So we need to know something about power and authority, how power or authority will be established and how power and authority is going to be exercised over the individual. So there will be theories related to power and authority. Then we are going to these individuals, they will be having a government, right? This authority itself will take the form of government. Specifically, it may take some other form also. So the government of which is part of the state, it is governing the individual. What is the form of government? Some people also say that, it is not important to study the form of government. Some people say it is very important to study the form of government. Political scientists are always interested in knowing and understanding the forms of government. Like for example, Aristotle, who is considered as the first political scientist, and his work is considered as a work of science also, because Aristotle studied 158 different constitutions which were prevailing in the Greek city-states, and on the basis of the comparative study of all those city-states, he created a constitution, an ideal constitution and an ideal state. So he comes up with a form of government. He prescribes certain ideal form of government. Similarly, Plato also prescribes some ideal form of government, an ideal state, an ideal form of government. Then later on, Machiavelli will give his own ideal state and ideal form of government. Liberal thinkers will then start proposing for democratic form of government, and so on. So this is how we say that how the forms of government have emerged. In the beginning, maybe it was aristocracy, then later on we'll have monarchy, then constitutional monarchy, then democracy, right? So different forms of governments have emerged through this evolution of political thought and these ideas. Then we have the relationship of the state with the individual in terms of rights of the individuals. How much, to what extent are they enjoying those rights? Along with rights, there will also be duties, or what we formally call in political science, we call this as obligation. So duties and obligations and rights. Then what scheme of justice has been established by how the state is going to bring justice for the individual. So then of course we will have something like how the state is trying to bring in equality, how the state is trying to establish liberty, right? Even if you look at the preamble of the Indian Constitution, you will get most of these values, most of these concepts mentioned over there. Political science is all about these basic concepts, right? These basic terminologies which help us, basic terms which help us to explain properly the word of politics, the word of political science is what, or are what we call as the basic concepts of political science. And on these concepts itself, we try to see that how these concepts can be established in different societies or systems in the best possible form. And to establish it in the best possible form, you will have to study it, you have to evolve that best form, and that best form itself takes the shape of theories. So we have in section A of PSIR, what all theories we have? We have theories on state, we have theory on equality, on liberty, on power and authority, on different forms of government, which again is part of theories of state. Then we have theories on rights, we have theories on duties or obligation. Some of it may not be there as part of your syllabus. There's theory of justice. Then maybe the state and individual relationship may also be defined through citizenship. Now you study all this in your Indian polity also, but in political science you are going to study the theories behind all of this. What are the best of ideas, how these could be implemented. So I hope we are getting what exactly section A of paper 1 is all about. These ideas and theories related, these are some very interesting ideas which have come, and once these gets clear, you know, your command of Indian polity will have full command, because your conceptual clarity, you know, we will have the best of conceptual clarity to deal with any of the questions in Indian polity as well. Like nowadays in prelims they are asking a lot of questions in Indian polity which are conceptual, and these questions will become cakewalk for the student of PSIR. Okay, now in case if you have any questions also, you can always mention the questions as well. Polity and political science mein difference kya hai? Thomas Romick is asking what is the difference between polity and political science. Okay, so let me tell you this when I will explain section B, what all is given there in section B. Let's try to understand, and here only I will explain to you what is the difference between polity and political science. Section B of paper 1 is about Indian political system. Indian political system. Okay, so we need to know all about how politics is conducted in India, and in fact we will also study how politics evolves in India. So one thing is about study of politics, and then another thing is about study of polity. Now this is the difference which has been asked as a question. See, what is polity? Polity essentially is a political organization of the society, and which is established through a broad framework, what you call as constitution. So polity is a framework of political organization, right? And this happens to be the formal framework which is there, which is by which you are organizing the society politically. That means you are establishing an authority and you are giving the control to the authority over everything else. This is how we have adopted a constitution in India. This constitution established Indian state, and this Indian state, it runs the affairs in the Indian state, right? So this all is what you study in polity. And when you are studying the affairs of the state, you don't study the affairs in full detail, because that is studied in administration, but you study only a broad framework of that affair. That means we study everything that is given in the constitution, right? Only the framework or whatever is given in the constitution, or maybe something which is given in very important laws. These things are studied in polity. So polity is something which is formally given in the constitution. Polity is not about politics. Polity is not about the political process which is unfolding. Polity is more about this formal system of authority which we have established, constitution, state, and a broad framework of the government, and also broadly the relationship of the state with the individual. This much is what you are studying in your polity. So polity includes everything which is there in the constitution. For at your level you can only understand this. इतना आप समझ सकते हो कि polity is something which is by which you are trying to understand the framework of government, and most of the things are given in the constitution, right? And also we study the issues related to that. Like for example, in current, lot of like uniform civil code is there. right, as an issue, because it is related to the constitutional, some of the constitutional provisions. We have issues related to internal disturbances or issues related to some internal security in some of the state, its relationship with the constitution, the provisions in the constitution, or sometimes even with respect to very important law, like now the government is trying to bring or change these 3 laws with respect to the criminal justice system. This briefly could also be studied as part of Indian polity. But when you talk about politics, in politics you will have to understand this broadly also. So knowledge of polity will be helpful there, but along with that you also need to understand how politics is happening. Like in section B, we study about the levels of government, we study about president and prime minister, their formal position. But more than that, in politics, we will study about the politics behind the institution of the position of president. Like for example, I'll give you the example. In your polity, the question will be asked related to the process of presidential election. But in political science, the question will be related to politics involved in the presidential election. Like for example, sometimes like in 1969, when the president election happened, the entire process had become very political. So how the candidate is, portrayed, how a candidate is selected, and then how different political parties are supporting, then there may be a lot of politics involved through which they try to polarize the entire process of presidential election. So all of these things will be studied in political science. In political science, like when you are studying prime minister, then we will look at the political role of the prime ministers also, right? How prime ministers, what kind of politics, what kind of leadership role they have played, what kind of vision they have set, and how they have influenced the Indian political system. This is what we'll be studying in case of PSIR. But in case of polity, you are only studying about mostly about the constitutional provision or the formal affairs which are related to the position of prime minister. So there is a big difference. So in section B, when we are talking about politics, then we have to see that when politics starts in India. Politics starts with, now when we say that when politics start, now politics will start right from the beginning of the human society. But initially it may happen in the groups. There may be some interest which is being pursued by group, which may be considered as politics. Essentially it is about pursuing interest, right? But when we say in the larger public arena, when politics starts, when the masses somehow will start getting affected through politics, this started to happen in India when we will have our freedom struggle, right? So with the freedom struggle, we'll see that the people in India start getting connected to the process of politics. So there will be organizations established, like we have the Zamindari associations earlier, landholder society, then there will be the moderate politics, their organization, then Indian National Congress, then the entire freedom struggle. This is all how politics had slowly emerged, and this is the reason why in section B of paper 1 you are going to study the modern Indian history also, like the politics behind the freedom struggle, the strategy, the political ideologies which are behind the political struggle which we have had as part of our achievement of freedom. So this way we say, if you look at the syllabus, please try to look into the syllabus. Whatever you are studying in modern history, it is going to help you here, and whatever you will study here is going to help you in your modern history also, especially everything that is related to freedom struggle. Then after the emergence of this politics, then after independence, what happened? We adopt this constitution. What is the political role of the constitution? How it is trying to change the Indian society? How it is trying to bring about that change, or you say it is trying to bring about reforms in the society, right? So that role, then important issues in the constitution, levels of government, important positions, these things will be directly related and connected to whatever you are studying in your polity. But here in PSIR, you have to get into a little more detail, right? After that, we will be studying about issues related to politics. Like for that matter, there will be issues related to planning and development, because politics is connected with economics also, politics is connected with the entire process of development also. Politics will be connected to social change also, politics will be connected to social development or reforms also, right? So all the issues related to social movements in India, or issues related to caste, class, religion, communalism, all these issues are going to be studied here as part of political process in India. Then we will also be studying along with that everything about institutions like political parties in detail. Say, these things you are not going to study in your Indian polity. In political science, we'll be studying all about political parties like Indian National Congress, how it emerged, what role it had played, what is the ideology, what is the social base, how it has been recruiting people, how it's, it had its base earlier, how the base has eroded, what are the factors involved, what is the political or internal political organization of these parties, how they have performed over the years in the elections. So this entire thing about all important parties, especially the national parties and even some important regional parties also we are going to study. We will also look at what is the party system in India. Earlier it was one party was dominating. Then we have got into the era where we have two poles, like politics has been polarized. How this politics has been polarized. We have moved into the multi-party system now. Now some new experiments are happening, like we have had the coalition politics earlier. Now another new form, like we have this alliance India taking on NDA. So what new dynamics are emerging? We will be analyzing all this based upon our understanding of the previous party systems and political parties. So I hope I'm just trying to go a bit fast because we'll keep the session brief only. So this is all which is there as part of section B. Everything about politics in India, institutions which are involved in politics, the movements, the political changes, the social changes, the economic changes, all these things we'll be studying in section B. And now if you go to paper 2, in paper 2 what you are going to study? Paper 2 is all about international politics. So I told you that section A, you are going to study first and foremost about state, okay, then not only state, rather nation states and how nation states are interacting with each other, right? It is all about how the world political system, the international system, it has evolved, how the international system has evolved and how the international system works. Then who are the players? Nation states are the player over here. We have the international organizations which are the players. We have like United Nations and all those bodies. We have the regional organizations or some kind of collective organizations which are the players in this part. Then we also have, now role is being played by multinational corporations also, international NGOs also, all those players. So we need to know about all of these. Then certain concepts over here, like we said earlier in section A of paper 1, the basic concepts of politics are state, polity, individual, community, justice, liberty, rights, like what all I mentioned over there. I mean, I did not mention all the terms, but important terms I mentioned over there. Similarly, the reality of the global world or international politics, it can be explained through certain concepts, what we call as basic concepts in international relations. What are those basic concepts through which you will explain the reality of the international relations? Those basic concepts, first and foremost, is nation state itself. Then every nation state is pursuing its own interest. So national interest becomes important. National interest, right? And then they need to have the power to pursue their interest. So national power. They are taking certain measures collectively also. So there is some collective interest also, collective security, like for example United Nations, or earlier we had League of Nations. They were collective security framework. So the concept of collective security is there, right? Trade may be there, through which there will be interaction among the nation states. So number of ways in which these interactions are happening, like we have security in general, national security you can say as an issue. These are the basic concepts through which we explain the realities. Even international organizations are the basic concepts through which we will explain these realities, right? So we will study about what are the best way to bring these concepts. For best way, we will require, there are theories given which are like how can a nation pursue its interest in the best possible way. So there would be theories on national interest, some theory on national power, on the concept of state or nation state itself, on collective security, national security, right? Security dilemmas are there. So on these also there are certain models, certain theories which have been given, which are followed as prescription by different countries in the world, and especially so by the superpowers. Then we have geopolitics, right? Specifically, there is a difference between geopolitics and international politics. What is the difference? What are the models which are followed? All the models may not be there in the syllabus, but at least some brief idea would be required. So we need to understand the international politics in theoretical terms, and then we will see the issues which are there in international politics, and we are trying to explain those through these basic concepts, through certain theories, through certain principles which have been established. So this is section A of paper 1, and section B is simply Indian foreign policy. So Indian foreign policy is like certain basic principles. First and foremost, how a nation pursues its interest. So some principles from, or some theories from here will also be applied to Indian foreign policy. Then what all principles we had created earlier right in the beginning, how have we changed those principles, what the basic foundational value of the Indian foreign policy, has it changed over the period of time, in what phases can we divide the Indian foreign policy, what was the nature of foreign policy earlier, now what is there, later on what will be there. Then you will get into details, region wise, India's relationship with the world powers, India's relationship with the neighbors, India's relationship with the third world countries, India's stand with respect to United Nations, India's stand with respect to nuclear issues, India's stand with respect to global warming, maybe other scientific issues, environmental issues, and so on. So this is a very dynamic paper. I mean, both the paper, section B and entire paper 2 is highly, and it's very dynamic. So this gives you a very broad idea related to PSIR optional. What those people who are interested in PSIR, the first and foremost what you should do is that please go through the syllabus of the optional in detail, right? I can give you my contact number also. You can always discuss with me things in detail, or wherever you are feeling some doubt or things are not getting clear, you can always discuss with me related to if there is any difficulty in choosing your optional, or if you are in fixation with respect to whether you should go for PSIR or not, on what basis can you decide the optional, right? You can, but I will just still give you a brief about if you have not yet decided the optional, then how can you think of doing so, right? So this you can do. Any question if you have, you can ask me, or else I will move on to the next phase of our discussion. So we are clear broadly and briefly what all is there in the subject. Now let us see that what are the advantages or benefits of choosing PSIR optional, and for which kind of people will it be suitable. See, the manner in which the subject is to be studied, it has to be, no matter you have studied it in your, even at your university level, even at your postgraduate level, the way it needs to be understood, we need to start from scratch, right? In all our classes, we assume that you have zero understanding on any issue, right? We will start from the very basic, and everything, every term, every concept will be made very clear. I personally emphasize upon the fact that until unless you are clear about things, we will not move forward. We will ensure it's our responsibility to, for these, this clarity to come to you. So you don't have to be worried about, even if you are new to the subject. Anyone, any active citizen somehow or the other is involved in politics, right? Most of you take some interest in politics, and just because you are taking some basic interest in politics, that is good enough to create or increase your curiosity with respect to this subject. It is very practical to understand. Everything is so interesting that even if I would say you are a beginner, you will not face any problem. So people from any of the social science background can opt for political science and IR, right? Even from science background students. Now sometimes it happens that science background student may feel that, you know, there are some thought which may be a little philosophical, or maybe the language may be a barrier. But then please understand, anyhow you are going to study in your GS all the issues, right? You have to write a good essay. Nowadays a lot of philosophical essays are asked. So a small, or rather say a fair amount of understanding, even in areas of thought and philosophy, it will help you to have a very strong foundation for your philosophical essays also, and even for your ethics paper. PSIR as an optional, it helps maximum in your GS papers. Let me tell you how it helps in the GS paper. Okay, how much time in a day should you dedicate to your optional? I'll just come to that question. Just wait for a, just complete this. See, in your GS paper 1, history area, the entire everything about modern history will be related to your section B of Indian pop, because you have two particular topic in detail which are related to freedom struggle. And here in political science, you try to understand freedom struggle from an analytical perspective, from the perspective of politics. So there is a better understanding of the freedom struggle of all different movements, different political ideologies which were involved in everything. So this will help you a lot in your modern history. Then GS paper 1, there are social issues also, social justice or social issues. Those areas, they are strongly connected to social movements, class, caste, ethnicity, which are there in your section B. So there is a connect with modern history, there is connect with social issues. Then paper 2 of GS, like Indian polity, most of the areas, big overlap there, but yes, in PSIR you will get into details of politics also. So whatever you are studying in GS will help you here. Whatever you are studying here, it will help you to better analyze your questions in your GS papers, especially for mains. Even for prelims also there will be more conceptual clarity. So polity area, that is. Then in your ethics paper, the thought, whatever thinkers you are studying over here, like for example John Stuart Mill, or the idea of utilitarianism, right, or socialism, all these ideas are founded on the basic human values, founded on the basic principles of ethics, which anyhow is part of your ethics syllabus. In ethics you are studying about so many philosophers, and most of them are here as part of your syllabus in political science. So you will have a very good background and foundation for your ethics paper. Then the subject is also going to help you in all the areas of international relations and foreign policy and bilateral relationship, right? Whether it is part of paper 2 or some areas which may be related to world history, because world history, whatever thinkers we are going to study, right, or even in international relations, we'll get into the background. And with background, we will create so much of background that you will learn a lot of world history over here. Like for example, when we are studying these political philosophers like Hobbes and Locke and Rousseau especially, then we need to understand the context. So we will have to discuss the history of Britain. We will have to know something about the history of France and the French Revolution. So those things will help you in your world history. So many areas, even in economics also there will be overlap, because World Trade Organization, globalization, in India economic reforms or some major changes in the political economy, that will also help you to generate better perspective on issues on economics, right? So please go through the syllabus by yourself and see the overlap which is there with the GS paper. There's a number of overlaps with all different papers of GS, and of course in essay writing it is going to help you, right? Not to mention about how it will help you in the interview, but this is a fact that political science and international relations as a subject, it helps maximum in your GS paper, and probably this is the reason why the subject has become that popular also. And at the level of interest, I mean, optional paper you should decide based upon your interest, and I would say that if you people have been taking a little interest in politics also, then you will become far more interested in political science. I have seen over the years that people who are having not much interest in political science also, once they start learning it, they become more and more interested in the world of politics, and so also in the world of political thought and ideas. Now I will answer the question of Kerala. He's asking how much time in a day should you dedicate for your optional paper. See, every day it all depends upon the classes. If you are doing the classes very sincerely, then it's our responsibility, and I take it very personally, that I try to make you people understand everything in the class and make you remember also as much. But of course revision will be required. So every day if you are attending the class seriously, then after that I would say 1 to 1.5 hours of revision would be required. On the day, there are few days when we do not have the classes, like we have generally on an average classes of optional 5 days a week. So 2 days you will anyhow get an off. So you can revise in those 2 days also, but advisable is that if you give 1 to 1.5 hour daily to your optional paper, you will be thoroughly prepared. Like within 4.5 to 5 months, you will be able to complete your optional. That much amount of time is required. Any other question if you people have, you can put up your questions. And I would always suggest that please give priority to your interest when you are deciding your optional, right? First factor should be interest. Second factor should be how the paper is going to help you in your GS. And the third factor you can take into account is how the paper is performing in UPSC. And in all the recent years we have found, in fact, in almost all the years, political science as an optional have performed fairly well in all these years. What about agriculture as an optional? Is it a scoring? See, every subject is scoring. Every subject is scoring. You need to know how to know the art of how will you score good marks, right? Every subject has its own speciality. So if you have mastered the subject, if you have command over the subject, if you are very clear about everything, if you have a genuine interest, and if you can write answers better than others in a particular subject, go ahead, right? So it's all about, so all the subjects are scoring. And of course, please understand it is all relative. How will you perform in a particular subject over others, rather than how will you perform in some subject over other subject, right? It's about how you are performing in the same subject with respect to other students who are writing the answers. So if you can do that, nothing like that. Any other? So I mean, it's very difficult to compare agriculture with political science. So if you have a background in agriculture, if you have a good command over there, or whatever other optional which is there, if you have a good command, if you have a background, and the subject is performing fairly fine in UPSC, then you can go ahead with that. But also see that how paper helps in your GS. Okay, PSIR, public administration, sociology, these are some of the subjects which are very, relevant for UPSC, and in the entire scheme of your GS preparation is very strongly connected to these papers. Yes, any other question? Now we have, let me just brief you about the class also, or the course over here. Overall, there will be around 110 to 120 sessions in PSIR. Okay, now some people say that the syllabus is too vast. Or please understand that syllabus is vast, but then your more or less you see the number of areas which is getting prepared for your GS, that is huge, right? So otherwise also I don't think it is vast, because the reason being that theory and thought and the theoretical framework of PSIR is very compact. It's not scattered, right? There are certain subjects where these theoretical frameworks are too scattered. It becomes difficult to complete. In political science, the syllabus looks vast, but there are a lot of repetitions. Like for example, there's theory of justice, theory of rights, theory of equality, but similar ideas you are going to study in political thought also, in Indian political thought also. So there is a lot of overlap, right? So syllabus is not at all vast. It will help you a lot in your GS paper anyhow, so that further makes it, like I would say, advantageous as far as its preparation is concerned. History and political science is a connect that people say that history is past politics and politics is history in the making, right? So history and political science, the two subjects, the only difference is that history is purely descriptive, right? That means it doesn't have theories, but in PSIR you will have theories also. But here it is about what all is happening and then why it is happening and how better it could happen. So you will be studying theory also behind those politics. In history, it will be full of events, full of stories, right? Theoretical element won't be there. So if you are interested in understanding why behind things, in understanding like how it could be done better, how the world could become better, then political science makes more sense. Otherwise, if you have a background in history, if you have studied history properly, nicely, maybe you can go ahead with history. Okay, so I think it is better that you do your own analysis in terms of go through the syllabus of your optional, try to relate with GS paper also and see that how it helps, and of course take into account the factor of your interest. And one more factor you can take into consideration is the availability of sources and material and classes and all those things. So that's a lesser important factor, but still that could be one of the factors. So 10 to 120 sessions overall will be there. Okay, a few sessions we have already conducted. so far, for which you will get, a backing in the form of a video, so you can watch those classes and you can connect with the sessions which are being organized from now onwards. And I will be there available always with respect to any of your difficulties, problems and challenges which you are facing. In the class, few things I want to make it very clear, that class, we try to make it as interactive as possible. You can have as many questions as possible. Every day I start taking up the questions of the previous day. We will take up the doubts, try to see that everything is clear. Focus will be on the conceptual clarity, on the basic terms, right? Everything should fall in place. Then the one good thing about is that we will cover the syllabus very comprehensively, right? We are not going to leave any of the areas of syllabus. We will comprehensively cover the syllabus, except for maybe 1 or 2 topics which I feel is something which may not be required to be discussed in the class. Everything else will be discussed in the class. Then at the same time, we are focused a lot on question answer discussion in the class. Previous year's questions we will be discussing more or less every day. Some or the other questions will be discussing. I'll give you the assignment, ask you to prepare the answer structure. Then I will discuss, you can compare your answer with the answer structure. Then I will ask you to write some answers also as part of assignment and submit. In between, we'll be having tests. The answers, once you will get back after the evaluation, will give you certain comments through which you will improve. So a lot of answer writing also needs to happen along with these classes, because the ultimate purpose is to write the best of answers in PSIR, right? Develop the best of understanding and produce the best of answers, because after all, you have to clear the exam, right? So that's how we have planned this entire thing. I mean, those people who will be joining, you will be getting the detailed planner also, how the classes are going to progress. You will get the study material in the form of 10 booklets which are very comprehensive. Though I tell in the class with respect to units as to what extra readings you can do, but let me tell you, there will be few books I may suggest, but books are only for reference purpose, okay? You will focus only on your class notes and your booklet. And one more thing that needs to be made clear is that we will prepare the notes in the class itself. I write everything here on the board. All the framework for all the topics will be prepared for you. Your class notes itself, what you are preparing in the class, whether you do the classes online, offline, or you are later on watching the video session, ensure that you note down everything what we are discussing, whatever frameworks we are preparing in the class. Class notes itself will be your final notes for the exam. You are not going to waste any time in preparing your own notes. Club the class notes with those 10 booklets which will be given to you, and along with that, just keep following your current affairs the way you are doing for your GS. Along with that, I will suggest maybe some articles from Word Focus, right? Maybe some very selective articles from Political and Economic Weekly for you to follow. Nothing beyond this will be required. Books I may suggest, but books will be kept only for reference purpose. Don't think that you have to mug up, study too much from nothing. Only for reference purpose, just to clear your doubt. You will focus only on your class notes and the booklets which will be given to you. This shall be our approach. Will the videos will be accessible after the live session? Yes, videos will be available for fairly good amount of time after the live sessions, right? Generally, we also consider some special cases where if you are missing for some reason some video, we can keep it for a little longer also. So that is never a problem. So don't worry about that. Any other question if you have, you can ask me. And of course, like once the syllabus is through, I think, this is how I have experienced with respect to the students who have been joining the courses of PSIR, that by the end you will have full command. Like, if probably you are involved and you also have done your work, right? You will have a good command over the subject in both the terms, in terms of your understanding, also in terms of your capacity and capability and skills which are required for performance, right? Like answer writing, analytical skills, right? Even maybe subject will help you to improve upon your languages, your expressions. And in the class also, I make it, all the more, I emphasize a lot on how you will learn from, the discussion and the language expressions, right? How language improvement will happen. And I will make you conscious about all those things. we have to be very, very conscious about learning, like so as to maximize our experience. Okay, so I think this is, I've just kept it very briefly and I went a bit faster also because I had lesser time to discuss so many things with you, and of course it's only an online session. So I hope that it has served the purpose, and in case if you have any doubt or question, you can, how many months will it take to finish the syllabus? See, around, I would say 5 months, okay, around 5 months. So sometimes it happens like there are holidays in between, so it gets stretched up a little bit. Otherwise, generally it's about 5 months. So if we start from now, so you can say that till the end of January, or till the end of January, I think it will get over. I mean, if there are spillovers, maybe by 10th of February maximum. By that time, we'll be able to finish the syllabus. Yeah, any other question? So for further doubts, if any of you, if you have like further questions related to optional or how to decide optional, or related to PSID, in fact, if you are in a fix and you're not able to take that decision, then you can always contact me on my number. You can WhatsApp me and discuss. Okay, so I think this is all what I wanted to discuss with you. We'll wind up the session now. For further details, you can get in touch with the management at your centers. Further details, those details which you are asking related to the course fee and other things, those you can get in touch with the management and get all the details. Okay, academic details you can ask me in case if you have further questions. I'll give you 1 minute, then we will wind up. What percentage of overlap between PSIR and GS paper 2? Oh, GS paper 2 entirely will be related to your PSIR, right? So whatever you are going to study in PSIR is more or less going to help you in your entire paper 2, because even bilateral issues, foreign policy issues are there, right? There are some social justice, social issues will be there. Of course, in GS you study with a different orientation, in PSIR with a different orientation, but the structure, the basic framework will be important, right? A common basic framework will be there which will be useful in both the cases. So there is going to be a good amount of overlap, and I mean, I will not tell you in terms of exact percentage, right? I mean, I can say it's like 60-70% or something like that. It's very difficult to fix that percentage, but there's a fair amount of overlap with GS paper 2, even with GS paper 1 and paper 3 also. Paper 3, it helps to build the foundation. You will yourself realize, like once you are studying all these thinkers and philosophers, you will find that you are going to study them in your ethics as well. Like the ideas of Plato or Aristotle, John Stuart Mill, right? Or Hegel, or their ideas, it will come. Or maybe certain isms also, which you are going to study in political science, certain ideologies based upon which the ideas will be generated, or ethical principles will be based upon. So it will provide you that foundation. Okay, so I don't think you have any further questions. In case if you have, you can anyhow get in touch with us, to the management, or you can get in touch with me in case if you have academic queries. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.